Hi, folks, and welcome back Inside Manhattan Basketball. Christian Imel with the head coach of Manhattan Women's Basketball, John Olenowski. Coach, start of conference play, it was a murderer's row to begin for this team. The first 4 games in a matter of 8 days before that break prior to the Fairfield contest. But just talk about that first week of conference play.
Well, it was very difficult and took a lot of extra preparation, and certainly was a very tough task for us. We just did okay with that. We thought we might be able to play a little better in the last few games, whatever. But we are off and running, and probably have the toughest stretch finished by now with that 4 games in 8 days, like you mentioned.
We talked about it last week, but for this team to completely take the idea of a clean slate going into conference play, you really saw with those first 2 games and picking up those first 2 wins.
We did, yeah. We played very well in those 2 games, and we actually played well in 4 of the first 5, and so the effort's there. We're trying to battle the injury bug, and we're trying to battle ourselves to get ready in such a short time period. But the effort's there. We're working hard, and I think we're getting better each and every game.
You mentioned the injury bug. Obviously, Kayla Grimney was the big one. Ashley Steck goes out at Siena. She doesn't play against Fairfield. Like Underhill goes out at Siena. She does come back, but how difficult is it to find that rotation, to find that consistency when you don't have all your players there?
Yeah, it's very difficult. And I think it's difficult when someone goes down during the game, like Blake went down, because at the time it was a very close basketball game, and we relied on her to break the press, and she was scoring. So when she went down, our bubble was kind of burst a little bit. Now, it really shouldn't, but we're talking about young ladies that are affected by things like that, and so that was a tough injury, and Ashley's was a very tough injury because it was early in the game. So the girls battled, but sometimes when you get low numbers like that, it really hurts your depth.
We talked about the scheduling maybe not being fully in favor because of who you were playing during that stretch and how close together, but 4 of the first 5 conference games at home had to be a little bit beneficial.
Yeah, it was beneficial. I wish we would have done a little better in the last few, but it was definitely beneficial to not have to do the traveling that takes place with the away games. So that was good, but now we're going on the road, and we have to get ready for that task.
Last contest, obviously the Kids Day Out game against Fairfield. First off, just talk about that kind of day, because it happens every single year, but you get an incredibly loud and excitable crowd here at Draddy.
Yeah, we sure do, and I think this year was approximately 800 students, and they were very loud, and they were great support for our team. And I think in the first half we built off their adrenaline and had a great first half in that basketball game. But it's a special day. I love playing it. I'd be more in favor of playing more games like that, but I think playing early morning like that is very, very unique.
This team was able to come out and had a great start in that first half. You brought it up, and even into the second half as well, pushed the lead up a little bit. Fairfield eventually started making shots, but what did you see change from Fairfield's offense in that second half?
Well, they made shots. They were not making into the early part of the game. At the 30-minute mark, whatever, I think with a little over 9 minutes to go, I think we still have a 1-point lead. And they hit 4 threes that were real daggers. And I think 3 of them were from Vasquez, who's a great shooter, and I think 1 of them was from Schatzlin. And those were 2 danger shooters that we worked very, very hard to defend. And we did a pretty good job up until that point. But when they hit those threes, unfortunately, we didn't really come back and have anything for them. We struggled on the offensive end. So those 12 points, in effect, was a basketball game.
In that second half, it seemed like your senior point guard, Allison Scruggs, just tried to do everything she possibly could to affect the outcome of the game.
Yeah, she did, and she drove so nicely to the basket and really directed us well. We had very few turnovers in the game, but she took care of the basketball and really did a great job of taking it to the rim.
Monica, this is kind of a stupid question to ask, but when she drives baseline and she hits that fall-away jumper like she did in the MAC tournament last year, or like she did multiple times on Thursday, how much trust do you have in her to hit those shots? Because it seems like some of them, it's impressive that she's actually able to get that with her body going a completely different direction.
Right, yeah, and she's always been good at that for 4 years. So we actually have plays for her coming off of screens where she can drive and take that shot. I would like if she had a better angle where she could use the board, because then it's much easier for her to not have to judge it so softly. She can throw it up there against the backboard and get a good rebound. Normally it'll come right back to you. But she's so good with that shot that more than not, she makes it, and it's a big boost for us.
And so always goes like to get the fans involved. Beth asking about the 1-3-1, obviously a huge defensive team that you run, but what is the biggest key in terms of an effective 1-3-1?
Well, I think the biggest key is to have tremendous ball pressure, and I think you've got to really make it difficult for the other teams to move the ball around. So I think with ball pressure and jumping into passing lanes, that's what makes it most difficult to be able to attack the 1-3-1. And our girls are comfortable running it, and they've done a great job with it over the years. So those are the two things that we really emphasize: ball pressure and being able to jump into the passing lanes for the next pass.
With that 1-3-1, we talked about it prior to Fairfield. The bottom part of it, it seems like a lot of times teams have been exploiting maybe the size advantage they have over Nicole Isaacs. But against Fairfield, at least for a good portion of that game, Nicole seemed to have made an adjustment.
She did, and those were very, very huge players inside with Obi Tabbitt and Szynski, and even Schatzlin is a really tall guard or whatever. So that was one area that we felt that they were going to try to come after us, and Nicole really worked hard, and we had really good ball pressure to deny it.
We talked about her, obviously the injury in the Siena game, but she bounces back and plays tremendous against Fairfield. Blake, in terms of her ability to get penetration on any defense and find ways to get to the rim.
Yeah, she's been such an improved player, and she's just getting better and better. But taking it to the basket is an area and a dimension that we so sorely needed from another player besides Allison, and Blake gives us that. But what she gave us yesterday was 8 rebounds, 5 of them on the offensive end. So her and Obi Tabbitt tied for most offensive rebounds, and I thought that was a tremendous stat. But she's playing really, really well.
And when you look at her, she's listed at 5'6", 5'7". For her to be able to do that against that kind of size, what does it say about her?
5'6", 5'7", and high heels.
Yeah.
But what that shows is that she's a tough kid. She's very athletic, and she really, really works hard. She gets after it, and that's a big key for rebounding.
How much do you look to her without the size advantage in terms from an aggression and a mentality standpoint?
Well, I think what we look for her is her athleticism, her aggressiveness, and really getting after it. I think that kind of really propels our basketball team, and I think that really we kind of feed off of that. And the way that she's played has been really, really great, and she just gets better every day.
You've had to change the lineup, obviously, a couple of different times because of the injuries. You're playing Monica more at a 4 and a 5 spot along with Shayna in the front court. How does that change the dynamic of this team?
Well, it's difficult. It really is. I mean, we've had Nikki Anderson as a post. We have Blake as a post.
Yeah.
We put Joe as a post. Use him, whatever. But the thing about it is that we try really hard to be prepared under the worst case scenarios, and these have been the worst case scenarios, not having the baseline that we so desperately wanted.
And I'm sure for you as well as for fans and members of this team, they're looking for that light at the end of the tunnel for when the injuries are done. How close is that light?
Well, we like to think that Ashley's day to day, so we like to think she's going to come back very, very soon. And Kayla's making huge strides, so we're banking that she'll be back, within a couple of games. But again, until they're back on the court, we'll just keep trying to get better and work harder and try to compensate for that. And the one thing I love is the girls have not felt sorry for themselves. They've not put their heads down, and they've been battling every second, and I couldn't be any prouder of their efforts.
How much of this team has a chip on their shoulder because of where they were picked preseason, how they started the non-conference? Because you saw it in those first 2 games, even in Fairfield and Marist at points, you saw them kind of say, we're not where everybody thinks we're going to be.
Right. I'd say certainly we've kind of rallied off of that because we feel we're a much better basketball team than that. But part of the reason with all the injuries and part of the reason of different lineups, whatever, I think it's kind of been very difficult for them to say, hey, wait a second here, here's where we belong. So I think it's just one battle after another. But eventually, when we get a little healthier or whatever, I think they realize that we have high hopes to get ourselves right up into the higher echelon of this conference.
The scheduling started off with 4 or 5 games at home. 5 of the next 6, though, are on the road. It's very much a give and take with the schedule.
Yeah, very much so, and that's the way that it always is, whatever. So you have to be prepared for the ups and downs. But again, I think that we play well on the road. We've had some really good games on the road. So I think this basketball team is getting very comfortable with, getting out there and playing well in our road games.
What's the biggest key? Because now we're at the quarter pole of the MAC conference. What's the biggest key for this team going forward?
Well, I like to say that our health would be the biggest key, but sometimes you can't control that, so we'll just keep working hard. I think we need to get, even though we're smaller, I think we need to be better rebounding. I think we need to be a little more aggressive on the defensive end, and I think at times on the offensive end we need to value every good shot, every good opportunity, and I think sometimes we try to do too much when we get down, and I think that's hurt us a little bit.
On the road coming up, what's the biggest key that you guys are looking for?
To go there, to play well, to play great defense, be prepared, and really come after it no matter who it is that we play.
It's John Olenowski, head coach of Manhattan Women's Basketball. If you'd like to ask Coach a question, you can tweet us at GoJaspers. You can also email us, gojaspers@manhattan.edu. Don't forget, you can follow Coach on Twitter as well, at John Olenowski. Coach, thanks a lot for the time.
Thank you, Christian. Appreciate it.
Thanks for joining us inside Manhattan Basketball.